Welcome to today's presentation. For those that don't know, I'm Chris Davies, so I'm the chairman for the Royal Institution of Naval Architects in the Tasmanian section. The RENA pertains to the design, construction and maintenance of all ocean-going vessels, and it's a global organisation of which Richard is the secretary in Tasmania. So on behalf of those present today, I'll pay respect to the traditional and original custodians of this land, the Moina people on which we meet. I pay respect to those that have passed before us and to acknowledge today's custodians of the land and its waterways and oceans, the responsibility for which all future generations rely upon. Now, today's presenter, Leisha Owen, is the curator, part-time curator, of the Allport Library and Museum of Fine Arts. Some time just before the wooden boat, I happened to be in the Allport Library and noticed a couple of paintings by William Duke, which took my attraction, and I asked Leisha would she do a presentation, and at the time I think it was possibly 2 weeks' notice before the Wooden Boat Festival, and she replied that I think it takes 2 years to change any of the any of the display in the Allport, so we didn't have time to change anything for the Wooden Boat Festival. So she's kindly offered to put together today's presentation. Now, Leisha has a Bachelor of Arts at the University of Natal, Pietermaritzburg, is that correct? Pietermaritzburg, South Africa. A higher diploma in Library and Information Science, University of Cape Town, and a Bachelor of Fine Arts in Painting, UTAS. Would you please welcome Leisha Owen?
Thank you very much, Chris. Thank you for that. And welcome everybody. I'm hoping some of you have been to the Allport before. Have you? Have you been? Yes. Good. So you will know that we have a exhibition program that runs in the front gallery that changes, and then we've got the permanent displays, and then we do have talks, special talks like this from time to time, and also a series of other talks by the Professional Historians Association of Tasmania and the Friends of the Allport. So that's how that works. So I think I'll launch straight into what I've done for you today is just collected a lot of slides to put on a PowerPoint of some of the, literally just looking for naval and maritime art, starting in the Allport collection, but because we've got some other special collections and a large State Library collection, there was going to, and archives of course, there was always going to be something that caught my attention while I was looking, so I have made it a bit broader than the Allport. But I'll quite informally go through these and talk about them as we go, and if any of you want to ask any questions as I go or make any comments, I'm sure with especially knowing your background and your interests, I'd love to hear those as we go along. Right, so I will tell you a little bit about the Allport before I go into the maritime art, just in case you didn't know, the Allport Library and Museum of Fine Arts came to the State Library via bequest from Henry Allport in the 1960s. Henry was the last of the generation of 4 generations of Allports who'd arrived in Tasmania in 1831. They'd come to Tasmania basically as immigrants with 3 or 4 other couples, including Mary Allport's brother, and they'd set up a little farm. They literally lived in almost what looked like dog kennels in bush near Baghdad. They set up there as farmers. He had a law background, so when the farming didn't work, They were young, so I suppose they thought they'd have a go at it, and they had their little son Morton with them. They decided they'd move into Hobart, and they did that. And Mary Allport, was actually an artist. So I'll tell you about her as we go along. Actually, I'll just move this across, it's easier. So Henry, it was Joseph and Mary, quite nice names to arrive as the original parents. And then the 4 generations included people like Lily Allport, who we've had exhibitions about, who were professional artists in their own right. So they were a family of artists and lawyers, really, and collectors of all fine things. So that is where all of this material that we've got, you're sitting here in the library of the Allport, and so in all of these glass cabinets is the Allport Library rare book collection, which is an incredibly valuable collection. Some of it's duplicated in our State Library collection, but other bits are really only in the Allport, and a wonderful, wonderful collection of, especially for your interest, early exploration in Tasmania, Australia and the Pacific. So we've got all those first editions of all the exploration journals that there have ever been. The books are all here, beautifully bound. So we were very lucky that they collected books, but also ceramics and silverware, and of course the furniture. So that's why we've got it as a museum, and then of course the fine arts, which is the area that I'm really interested in, and you will be today as well. So I'll just go through this scene. You all know the collection: silver, ceramics, and the fine art. The other collection that holds quite a lot of maritime art is the Crowther collection. You would have seen a bit about Crowther in the news of late, about the statue. That was William Crowther. So his grandson donated their full collection, so that's another 4 generations, with a lot of people called William, to the State Library as well. So we do have that, and he was very interested in whaling and shipping as well. They had whaling boats. And so he collected a lot, and he also collected the scrimshaw. So we've got quite a lot of that. I'm not actually going to look at the scrimshaw today. We're only going to do the fine art. So when we look at the maritime art, I've divided it roughly into the early exploration, whaling, colonial art, and then the more recent photographs, a few of them at the end from our archives collection. Okay, so this one is a lithograph which shows the corvette Astrolabe in Antarctic waters. The Astrolabe was originally a horse transport barge converted into an exploration ship of the French Navy. Originally named the Coquille, she is famous for her travels with Jules Dumont d'Urville. Juju, as they used to call him. I like that. He had that nice little nickname, Juju. Dudu. Now, as you probably all know, but I didn't really, the corvette is a small warship, traditionally the smallest class of vessel considered to be a proper rated warship. You're nodding, you know that. I've got a slightly better zoom in on that to have a look at. So that's been.
So what was the? Did you mention the date of that? Is that
I didn't, but I can tell you that Dudu's voyage to the South Pole was 1837 to 1840, and it was a great scientific expedition, and it produced 23 volumes of works and atlases, 23 volume work and atlases in 7 volumes. So we've got all those atlases, and that's why when you see these lithographs, they were often produced for the books, for the voyage, the record of the voyage. And when you look on the left-hand side here, you will often see, it'll tell you the name of it'll say sculpt, or the name of the lithographer, and on the other side might say something like Deson or by, and will be the name of the artist who did the original drawing. Because don't forget, any lithograph of a voyage like this, there would have been an original drawing. Somebody on board ship would have done a drawing.
Yep.
And then it would have been taken back and made into a lithograph, and then the lithograph used to make the reproductions for the books. But that's an absolutely beautiful one. I mean, really, these works, if you think that they were scientific expeditions, and the people who were doing the drawings weren't considered artists. Either, I mean, I know that all naval colleges and that had drawing was something you had to do in that time. It would have been part of your training, I guess. But really, the way they did the sky and the water made you realise that they really had the artist's eye. Let's see if I've got some more information about this one. So the actual illustration is called Terre Louis Philippe, which they named, which they down in Antarctica on that expedition. And we've got it online. All of these images are online on our catalogue, so if you ever, I can show you afterwards if you're interested how to search our catalogue and to find them and to have a look at them at home, and you can download them as well. It's all available there. They've all been digitised. Go on to the next one. That was the detail of the astrolabe. Nice that name carries on, isn't it, too? And here it is, the same astrolabe in Hobart Town. And this was done from the harbour by Lauvergne. Now, Lauvergne was an artist that was with them on that voyage. And this is a painting, watercolour, 14 by 22, signed and dated. We've got that frame behind glass just as it is there. And Lauvergne was secretary to the commander of the astrolabe, Dumont d'Urville, who visited Hobart Town at the end of 1827, and they were here for a month. And that's all I've got on that one. But that's a lovely, you can see the wind and the thing. It's not in perfect condition, you can see the staining there and that, but it's pretty old. Now this is very exciting. We have just recently acquired this precious little watercolour. This was done by John Edward Davis. Now Davis was the second master on another voyage to Antarctica. He was in the ship Terror, so this is the Terror and the Erebus, and he was in the ship with Francis R.M. Crozier as the commander, and the voyage was under Captain James Clark Ross, who was the captain of the Erebus. These two ships carried the British Antarctic expedition under Ross in 1839. They came to Hobart Town, so that was the time of the Franklins, Governor Franklin and Lady Jane, and they were just thrilled to have them here. They did all sorts of things at the old government house, not at the new government house. The new government house up in the Domain wasn't built then, it was only built in the late 1850s. So it was the old government house in Franklin Square, so there was just such excitement because this was a really important, and as you know, John Franklin was very involved with Arctic exploration by the time he got here as governor and then went back up to the Northwest Passage. But he was very excited to have this James Clark Ross. I don't have a slide of James Clark Ross, but if you look him up, he was an incredibly commanding naval officer. And they established a it was Franklin doing it for the UK, with the British government, was to establish a magnetic observatory here in Hobart, and that was established on the site of the new Government House. So there is actually a building there named Rossbank, named after James Clark Ross, and Franklin and Ross and Crozier went up there and they laid the foundation stone for that magnetic observatory. There's not much of it left. There's a plaque there still, but I know that the present Government House is actually trying to do something so you can have some interpretation. People are really interested in it. These stations was all over the world at that stage, one in India, Cape Town, and they were measuring the southern magnetic fluctuations. So this painting, I'll go on to tell you a little bit about Davis. Actually, I'll just tell you something about Davis first, otherwise I'll forget. So the artist John Edward Davis was a topographical painter and naval officer, second officer to Captain Crozier, I've told you that. And though the expedition did not take an official artist, Davis was a very talented draftsman and cartographer, and his watercolours served as the basis for the lithograph plates. This particular watercolour is not produced in the printed narrative, and that's why the Allport has recently bought it. We could see the value of this. We actually had someone go over to London when they happened to be in London and saw it at Maggs Brothers Rare Books in London, and we bought it this year. So the Allport has a bequest, so we can buy something every year, and this is our treasure for this year. And I'm sorry, I was going to bring it up, but it's actually in our conservation department at the moment, so they're looking at it and making nice box and everything for it. Now, what is fabulous about it is you can see it's got that writing in the top half, which you can see, that's actually writing on the verso, on the back of that's shining through. But that's what makes it fabulous, because we call it a manuscript watercolour, because it's the original notes. It's Davis literally, here's my sketch, and on the back I'll just write what it is. And so, and then if they had have used it for the book, they would have then done a lithograph from the front of it. But then it's got a lovely history too, because it went on to be owned by, I think I've got it here, a man who was the president of the Royal Geographical Society, and I loved that because I worked at the Royal Geographical Society when I lived in London. So I loved that connection of bringing this in and putting it here in Hobart, where it's so important. Now, the subject of the painting is central to the expedition's scientific objectives. Initiated after a meeting of the British Association for the Advancement of Science, the goal of Ross's voyage was not just to locate the position of the magnetic pole, so that's what he was trying to locate, the South Pole, but also to make detailed observations of magnetic variance and declination throughout the southern hemisphere. An experienced Arctic traveller by this stage in his career, Ross had already in June 1831 discovered the magnetic North Pole. Knowledge of the location of these magnetic phenomena would allow mariners the world over to more precisely calculate their geographical coordinates, and therefore more safely navigate and more accurately chart the world's oceans and coasts. Demonstrated in this watercolour is an important early moment of coordinated measurement taking place across two ships in open water. An extraordinary feat, apparently. Only a few months into the voyage, the ships, Erebus and Terror, it's Terror in the front and Erebus in the back in this case, had left Sao Paulo off the coast of Brazil and was skirting the geometrical as opposed to the magnetic equator. Ross described a daily practice in his book at 1 p.m. between the two ships of communicating by signals the results of all that had been obtained up to that time. This would also serve to continually calibrate the ship's timekeeping devices, crucial for maintaining consistency of results. From the known coordinates of the geometric equator, Ross and Crozier were then able to use a device called a dip circle to navigate towards the magnetic equator. And he says, we had watched the progressive diminution of the dip of the needle and steering a course as nearly south as the wind permitted in order to cross the line of no dip at right angles. We found the change so rapid as to be ascertained with great precision, so much so that the signal for our being on the exact point of no dip, so it's before the compass is going to go south. It's been north, gets to no dip, and it's going to go south. Where the needle being equally poised between the southern and northern magnetic systems assumed a perfectly horizontal position, and the flags was being hoisted from both ships at the same instance of time. This is the moment that is depicted. Ross used his Fox dip circle, a device used to measure the angle between the horizon and the Earth's magnetic field, to elaborate on the significance of this moment. He said, nothing could be more satisfactory than the perfect accordance of our observations in a determination of so much importance, nor could it fail to be of more than ordinary interest to me to witness the needle thus affected, having some years previously, when at the North Magnetic Pole, seen it in a directly vertical position. So you can imagine the excitement. I must carry on now. I have got a picture of the back of it, and on the back is written HMS Erebus and Terror crossing the line of no dip. The observations made in each ship were quite independent and unknown to each other. They were made so carefully and accurately that while we were in the act of raising the signal flag, the terrors were seen to be shaking out in the wind. And he goes on. So the full title of that is Magnetic Equator, or Line of No Dip at 5:45 p.m. by 7 p.m. Dip measured 6 degrees, 13th of December, 1838. That's sick. It wasn't. It was actually 1837. Latitude 1350 south, longitude 3041 west. This is another one of Davis's. This is all off the Isle of Wight, and that was done in 1839. So that's another, just them leaving. And it's lovely the way he's just written, that's his handwriting there, Erebus and Terror, all off the Isle of Wight, leaving England. And then this is them down at the South Polar Barrier, the same trip. Sometimes the lithographers used to just put the penguins in, just to make it look nice. Yes, and maybe not. But we know he did that because this one is a painting watercolour on paper. So that's we've got a few of his, so that's lovely. Now we go into something a bit sadder. So I've included a live whale. So and when you look at the lines of that, who can beat that? Beautiful. So, most famous and most well represented in our collection are, of course, as Chris has pointed out, and what caught his eye when he came in was the works of William Charles Duke. And a little bit about Duke: oil painter, scene painter, lithographer, carpenter. Born in 1815 in Cork, son of Charles Duke, a carpenter. Came with his wife Lucy, 1840s, came to Sydney in December 1840. Found employment as a scene painter at Sydney's Royal Victoria Theatre. They used to do these big panorama scenes that they used to take out and show as entertainment. So obviously he could see he had an eye for drama and what would catch people's attention. After a benefit in 1846 in which he had painted the senior Duke, left his position to work on a series of grand scale panoramic and dioramic views. 47, I was just trying to find when he came to Hobart. go through all of that. His lithographs of Hobart Town and the local whale fishing were published in 1848. The 4 whale fishery lithographs, which I'll show you in a minute, met an enthusiastic reception in the local press. Despite the fact that at least one, the Flurry, which I'll show you in a minute, they thought was a copy of William John Huggins's painting in England. So, see, I missed that. Okay, good. So we can go on to the next one of William Jukes. That's it, just his dates there. So this is the Flurry which we have in the Colonial Gallery just through there. So after the talk you can go and have a look at the Flurry. Dramatic, yes. The harpooner went aft to the back to steer, while the boat header carried a lance forward and plunged it into the vulnerable spot, such as the heart or the lungs. With each breath, the whale spouted blood. So, pretty dramatic. And the boat in the background. As the whaleboat backed off again, the crew observed the death of the whale, and the great beast would swim violently in ever smaller circles in a pattern known as the Flurry. So that's actually what it's called. The end came when the whale beat the water with its tail, shuddered and turned fin out, a whaling term meaning that the whale had expired and turned over on its side. I've got a bit about the whaling industry, but we won't have time to go on to that. It's another subject in all. So there's a detail, and then he did the lithographs as well. And here's a comparison of his Flurry with the one from William John Huggins. So, I mean, it's not an exact copy. What he's done really is just copied the scene, really. You know, the fact that the whale is on its back with its mouth open at the boat. There is a man falling off the tip, diving down into the water in boat. So I suppose it's a bit of a copy, but it's a very beautiful oil painting, and we're very pleased to have it. He did some others. Chris and I were talking about this just before the talk, and we do have the lithographs as well, Chris. I've got them here. So this is an oil painting. We haven't got it on display. It's in the Crowther collection, and so it's upstairs in our racks, because we can't display everything at once, and we can't display everything all the time because of conservation reasons. Anything that comes out into the light just takes hundreds of years off its life. So that's why it's good to be in the Allport. You can get preserved for a bit longer in the dark. So the whaling term, this one's called the cutting in, and that's another whaling term. Important to process the whale quickly to prevent the sharks from feasting on too much of the valuable carcass. The crew, dividing into 2 watches, worked 6-hour shifts day and night until the job was done. The process would take from several hours to several days, depending on the size of the whale, the skill of the crew, and the weather. The whale was made fast to the starboard side of the ship with heavy chains. The crew erected the cutting stage, the plank platform, above the carcass. And then they stripped off the blubber and the thick layer of the fat, cutting spades set in 15-foot long poles. The process was very much like peeling the skin from an orange. And that's the cutting in. And then this is another whaler called the Pacific. This is 1849, and it's attributed to William Duke, so it's unsigned and undated, but we think it's by him. Similar cutting in process happening there. And this is the whaler Jane, a Hobart Town whaler, and this is by William Duke again, 1848, oil on canvas, with another little sailboat alongside. Where is that? Is that?
Before the collision.
Where would you say? Can you see the mountains in the back?
is it Betsy
Yeah, I was
Island?
going to say Betsy Island to the right.
Betsy Island to the right, South Arm, maybe, but the little hill on the left doesn't.
No, there's sort of high mountain in the back there on the left.
But it could typically be sailing up the river in a
Sailing up?
southerly.
Hiding Mount direction? No? I don't know.
No, Mount direction's the other way.
No, other way you reckon. Okay.
Looks down towards Cape Row there, the way over, yeah. So
Nobody's pondered this because we're all just looking at the ship.
yeah, about to happen, isn't it?
Yeah.
So were all the whaling vessels ex-Navy?
I don't know. I wonder.
Well, that's got gun for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. They used to do a lot of converting, didn't they, of anything for anything. I mean, all the Antarctic explorers were, you know, some of them were coal barks that they were there because they had nice big rounded hulls. So they did a lot of repurposing. They really did. But and they would put for the Antarctic ones, they would encase them in stuff. What metal was it? Copper.
Copper.
Yeah, copper. Yeah. Make them strong.
So
We had a lot of
how
American
would he
whalers
actually?
here too, though. We had a lot of American whalers.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, because it was big there, yeah. And I think Crowther bought an American whaler.
So how would he actually sort of paint that? Like, would he sort of be on a little dinghy or something,
Yeah.
watching it, and then just sort of really quickly sketch it?
Yeah, you wonder. I mean, Duke did pay good attention to the ship, so he probably would have done quite a lot of sketching, maybe even when it was in harbour, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, he got the details of the ship right, and I guess that's the main thing for him. It was about the ship.
Yep.
And then he put in the panoramas, and he could do these lovely skies and the rough seas and things. So, yeah, I mean, he was a real artist. So, I mean, he was probably always drawing, and maybe took a bit of artistic license with the backgrounds, though, you know, just to give it the drama.
It's interesting there's no birds. All your
No, but-
previous ones have had birds.
Yes, you're so right. They did love the birds in the foreground, and that's quite a good artistic device too. It gives you that perspective. Yeah, Knut Bull was one that he used to he used to always put a little buoy in the front and bobbing around, and you could almost feel the waves bobbing. If you had a buoy there, you could, you know, it's a way of showing that the waves are moving. Because quite hard to paint that, you know, the sea, to make it look as if it's alive and not wooden. So this one, I looked up, we bought this one in 1992 for $66,000. It'd be worth a lot more now. It just gives you an idea of how much we spend on our art. This one is signed by Duke, 1848, and it takes pride of place in our colonial gallery there, and it's the Pacific whaling ship. There's some birds. There's the little bobbing seagulls, big ones. No, they would
Quite
probably be
large,
Sherwood. What would they be?
Too big.
Too big for seagulls.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, no, they'd be Sherwood or something. But it could also be them.
I hate to be pedantic, but the wind looks wrong.
Yeah, that's a couple of those.
Gorgeous.
You look at the flags and the
Oh, really?
yes,
Oh, wonderful.
especially with the headsail. It's
Yeah.
Oh,
Bit of
no.
poetic license, yeah.
Wonderful observation, thank you. Oh, yes.
Yeah, but this boat looks as if it's got more movement. The slide before the boat.
Yeah,
looks as if
it's
really
Yes.
that's right. It is.
and
It's
it's
outside.
like a mantelpiece.
Yes.
because of the birds.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, yes, the bird trick. Yes. And the flying one too.
Swung around a bit.
Swung around. Yeah. Different boat. So the one was the Jane and the other one was the Pacific.
So the whaling boats are on the port side, so they pull it up on the starboard side. So
Another one out there. Lovely use of light on the water though, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Dramatic.
You can just see bilge paint. Yeah, that's what it is.
And that one is signed by him, so we're happy happy to buy that. These are the two lithographs that Chris was talking about that are mentioned in some of our other catalogues. So there's the one, it's called The Rounding, and that was drawn on stone by William Duke. And we've got that upstairs, so that's an original lithograph, so not one from a book, they have an actual printed one, The Rounding, and there they are side by side hanging on our racks upstairs. So it's The Rounding and The Chase. So that's the whaling boats, I guess, 1848 as well. And these came from the collection of Henry Allport, so he would have bought those. So as I said, he donated the collection in the 1960s. So he might have bought those any time, between the 30s and the 60s. They were always on the lookout for whaling and fine art. This is the Barker Aladdin, and this is by famous naval painter D. Cobram Pierce. P-E-A-R-S-E, Pierce. This is done in 1931, actually, so I shouldn't have put it here, I should have put it further down, but I thought it's a lovely, different kind of drawing, obviously really to document that bark, painting watercolour. We've exhibited before.
The dinghies around backwards, isn't it?
And this is a whaling ship. Are they really? Hey?
Yeah,
These artists, they just know what they're...
A bit of poetic license. Is that hat, do you reckon?
No.
Unless it's painted on the back, yeah.
For a start, they're whaling.
Whaling.
Yeah.
They're whaling ship.
Yeah, but that mark looks like, yeah.
Oh well.
I saw that perhaps as a towel.
The towel like that over the bow.
Oh.
Yeah, it could have been.
To stop taking
Yes.
the water.
Yeah, there's no birds, so there's no reliability.
And this is what happened to the Aladdin, talking about repurposing. The Aladdin became a Tasmanian government powder hulk. Yeah. Is that at the Domain there? So this is 1885 photograph from Captain Tarleton, made from the gun brig Maritime, he said. And then we've got sick, that's not correct. Hulked at Hobart, about, ? But it's since found out. Handwritten notes on the versa, held by the Curator Library. The Aladdin ex Mutine, M-U-T-I-N-E, built at Portsmouth as a 10-gun brig. Yeah, we've got the answer. In 1825. And in 1840 was sold and converted to the bark and traded as a merchant ship and a merchantman until 1846, when she was resold and whaled out of Hobart Town, until 1886, when she was again purchased by the government and converted to gunpowder hulk.
Yeah, there's a gunpowder wharf where the James Craig tied up when they was restoring it.
Yes.
And that'd be looking towards Rosny Point, I think.
Oh.
Yeah, so you're just down below Government House there.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I agree. But just below Government House there, yes. Yeah, it's a domain. Don't you think?
Yeah, there was like a...
Yeah, the Botanical
sandstone.
Gardens.
There was a sandstone block wharf there where they used to bring the gunpowder.
Oh, yeah, because the magazines up on the domain.
Magazines are up on the hill, yeah.
That's right. Okay. But look at the, telling everyone what's in there. Whew.
That's where your first shot goes, isn't it?
Oh, interesting. This is beautifully drafted by the same artist, Cobram Pierce. It's of the bark Prince Regent. The owner was Phyllis Seal, registered in Hobart in 1854.
Excuse me, I noticed with quite a few of the boats or the vessels we've had, they all seem to have the same house flag, the flag,
Oh,
the white diamond and the S.
yes.
Some of your previous ones, the ships were flying that as well.
Were they?
Yes.
What does that mean?
Well, that's what I'm curious. I think that one there on the foremost had it. If you go back a few, some of the others had it as well. See that one as well?
Yeah.
Was that the same image?
Yeah, and the one before.
That one?
Yeah.
That one?
Yeah.
Has it got something to do with Hobart?
Assume it was a company flag.
Yes.
Seal.
Is it? Does it say anything there? We can I can't read. It says Bark and Regent. They would have put it in the catalogue record. I'll have a look.
Philip Seal.
Philip
Philip
Seal.
Seal, isn't it?
So-
Owner Philip Seal, so it's probably.
It was.
Yeah.
The owner was Philip Seal. That's right.
Yeah.
Phyllis Seal. Is that a name?
Is it?
Yeah, it looks a bit like.
Yeah, Phyllis.
Phyllis Seal.
Yeah.
So
It says here
it-
the title printed in ink with additional text says official number 320, built at Portsmouth, Hampshire, England, 1814, bark rig, 3 masts, 2 decks, 98 and 8 by 10 foot, 23 and 1 by 10 foot depth in hold. This drawing is from a contemporary model, the fittings of which are largely in whalebone. Oh wow. Made by the ship's carpenter circa 1860. Drawing was labelled the hull and the stern, framed in gilt with acid-free mount. Phyllis Seal lived from 1807 to 1877.
Yeah, that'd be the house flag, I should have
Mm, nice.
There's a good collection of those.
Yeah, that's
That's a
interesting.
Hobart base family.
Need
I
to
think so.
look into that. It's nice. That's a nice
Yeah,
observation.
yeah, it's good.
Thank you.
Good observation.
Yeah, fabulous. This is now talking about America. Here's a whaler, North America, and it was copied by Cobram Pierce in 1968. Yeah, Pierce lived from 1883 to 1971. Not so long ago. So they might look historical, but these are actually quite recently done obviously, and as we read from the other one, from a model. So I don't know where the models are. Maybe the museum's got them. Who knows? That's it on the rack.
So where's the lighthouse? Is that-
Wasn't the art?
Which one?
Is it the art?
It's probably supposed to be the iron pot, maybe, I don't know.
It's not.
Once again,
It's a
poetic
lighthouse.
license.
A lighthouse, just to show that it's on the sea. Now this one is boats approaching a whale. J.H. Clark was the drew it, and Dubourg was the sculptor. We're jumping back now to 1813. It's a print. It's hand-coloured engraving. It's a beautiful print, though.
You've got a British flag on the end of his spear there, so. It's
Yeah.
handmade, yeah.
Yeah. Gosh.
He's going to claim it, I guess. It might be French and
Yeah.
other whalers there, eh?
Oh, poor thing. Look at it.
It's a bit like there's a spear in it already.
Yes.
Cartoon.
Yeah.
And that's interesting because that's very different to the flurry, isn't it? When there was like in rough sea, and it looks like that's it. But those boats look like convict hulks.
There's no gun ports in those.
Ah, but they strange though, the drawing. But that's 1813 print, England.
So you don't know the names of the ships, right?
These drawings, these few that I'm showing you now, are all in a book called Foreign Fields, Sports, Fisheries, Sporting Anecdotes, etc., published in London by Edward Orme in 1814. So it was sort of like a adventure book. So really, they're very illustrative.
But that was big business, not sport.
Sure was. That's right. But people were interested in it, weren't they? Too. Yeah, big business. Really. so much relied on the oil, didn't it?
Yes.
And the lean and everything. I mean, it's amazing how we get by now, though, without it, with the plastics that came and replaced the lean, and the oil replaced the oil, whatever. And you wonder what the future holds.
Especially with all the plastic.
Yeah. This is a whale brought alongside a ship, same. So just to show a different style, really, I put those in. And this beautiful, this is the only whalebone scrimshaw that I've included. Sperm whaling in the South Pacific Ocean, just to show the different style that the scrimshaw afforded sperm whaling. It's on a plaque. It's 27 by 36 centimeters, and the artist is unknown for that. Now, just quickly go through how we're going for time. Yeah, we're all right. Just going now through some of the other colonial art. This was done by Samuel Davenport, 1835, just to show some more, boats at Hobart. I wanted to just show a variety coming in. That's an early 1835. It was published in London 1835, but it's before that. And because of the steeple, you can see there the spire is pointed.
St George's Church?
Yeah. No, that's St David's.
Oh, St David's.
Would be.
Yeah.
St David's, and then we date, don't we, Clifford, through this. I think it's 1831 it changed its round to spire. So. But that's not a very good rendition of the front there. You can see because Hunter Island, Hunter Street, be that one down there. There's very high mountains in the background there. So, but again, you see it was an engraving published in a book in England, so done from somewhere. An artist who was local here for a bit was Skinner Prout. They left England in 1840, and then they went to Sydney first and then came to Hobart. So he's very famous for his wonderful, wonderful quick watercolours. So he was an artist that did things on the spot. So wherever he went, he just had his watercolours, and he was able to do these very quick renditions of what he saw. He's using the buoy device there for the waves. There's that flag again, but now I don't know, it could be a different one. That's just a red, it's just got red, isn't it? I've actually got some signal flag things later on, I'll show you. So Skinner Prout came to Hobart. So this one, he just calls us two ships. And this one was done in 1846. It's a hand-coloured lithograph, signed and dated. Yes, nice calm Derwent. Maybe a ferry boat, okay. Sure.
One of the waterman boats, I reckon.
Yeah. Big trees. About them. Ah, no, Port Arthur. So sorry. No wonder. Big trees. Big trees are the ones that got me. I thought, no, that doesn't look right. Port Arthur. That big mountain. Okay. Yeah, that's right, isn't it? Coming around there. Okay. 1850s. There you go. No?
That'd be from the Isle of the Dead, looking back.
Yes. Yeah. 1846.
Well, the waterman boat's towing something in
Yeah.
there.
It looks like
Yeah.
a sonar or something.
Oh, maybe to
Yeah,
do building work, a log to go and make a jetty or something.
It's painted spar, but look at it, like you said, in the background.
It's got fins on.
It's lovely. There's a lot of buildings there. Well, there was a lot of buildings at Port Arthur. This is a cousin of John Skinner Prout. His name was Samuel Prout Hill. This is Head Tasmania, 1854. Lovely light. Quite a lot of activity there. It's a watercolour.
It's beautiful. It's a beautiful
Yeah.
night.
Yeah. It was exhibited in this exhibition too, that one. Yeah, it's lovely watercolour that. And that's quite a dramatic one. Ships near Cape Raoul. Nice. Whoa. Pretty amazing to see.
What do they do? Yeah.
Yeah, they're the birds. and a log there too. But those are big waves. Those ships look small in those waves. Is that what he was trying to show us? Because they almost look like they're little models. Watercolour and done in 1854. This is called A Small Squadron of Her Majesty's Ships, 1849, also by him. And we don't name any of the ships in his painting. So he was really just after the rough seas and the wow.
He's got a fair bit of sail, hasn't he?
Fair bit of sail for the rough sea. We wouldn't know so much, you wouldn't. And this is an unidentified Bass Strait paddle steamer. How about that? I didn't know paddle steamers came in so quickly. 1854. They did. Amazing. Graphite and watercolour on coloured paper. And this painting was initially believed to be of the steamship Tasmania, one of two vessels operating between Hobart and Melbourne from the Tasmanian Steam Navigation Company, exiting Port Phillip Bay, Victoria. However, Tasmania was a screw steamship, not a paddle steamer, as depicted in this image. Good observation, whoever found that out. The vessel depicted looks like one of the large Bass Strait paddle steamer ferries Clarence, Waratah or Yarra Yarra that were in operation in the early 1850s. The smaller vessel is a large topsail schooner, a type of vessel common in the colonies at the time. So that's quite a nice historic one, especially with that. Can you see this paddle steamer bit of that? Takes a bit of time to see, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Oh, of course you've got the chimney as well. This is a ship of the Iron Pot by Horton Forest. Now Horton Forest is well known for his wonderful romantic scenes. 1883, it's oil on canvas, right near that lighthouse. Signed and dated by him. It's in very poor condition with paint loss associated with tears and abrasion, patched on the reverse. It's had a rough life. So it must have been used as...
A bit like the ship would say, it's had a rough life.
Yes.
Missing a mast.
Is it?
Yeah.
Yes, it does. Look at a bit of blank there. Yeah.
With the pilot cutter going across the pieces, might be, I reckon.
Oh, maybe he hadn't got around to painting it.
That's where the pilot station was.
Yeah.
Pieces, no?
Pieces, what, something.
Do you think?
That's on.
Lighthouse.
That's on Bruniana.
Derwent River, it says. Iron Pot.
Yeah, it's the Iron Pot.
Iron Pot.
Yeah, Tinderbox, yeah.
We do think it's the Iron Pot because they have the little lighthouse.
The three houses there.
Yes. Yeah, the little houses. Yeah. Yeah. This is one of the most beautiful romantic paintings in our colonial gallery. It's called The Wreck, and it's 1890, and it's attributed to Horton Forest. But of course, that's an English landscape. And this is the clipper ship Heather Bell, unsigned and undated, so we don't know. It's inscribed KWW. We don't know who that author is. Oh, that's an artist. Inscribed in blue pencil on the verso. It says Brown and Company, Hobart. Built, could be the Aberdeen. The Heather Bell was built in 1855 and Hobart owned. I'm not quite sure of those, so some of them have got little mysteries. That's in the Crowther collection. And then we've got a few of these. One of a flying squadron at Hobart, 1861. Artist unknown, and it's written Sir William Crowther wrote on the back, one of the flying squadron at Hobart Town. It's the Duke of Edinburgh, 1861. Warship, I guess. Royal Navy? Yeah. Yeah.
Pretty interesting wind in the sails.
Exactly.
Big flocks of birds.
Great credibility.
Oh, lovely. There's a steamer in the background. What date did we say?
1861.
1861 circa.
65.
1861 circa.
Okay.
There's the flying squadron now as a photograph in the Derwent in 1870. That's an early one. There they are, it's a whole squadron. They must have, I don't know, probably somebody here probably knows. They come regularly, the flying squadron. Must have. And this was a photograph by Cherry. Printed below it says it's the Scylla, the Phoebe, the Liffey, the Liverpool, and the Edmium. Inscribed in pencil it says, from the regatta ground looking towards Rosny, and illegible signature there. Newspaper clipping pasted to the verso describes the event and includes details of individual ships. So they must have all made the news when they came. Panorama was formed by pasting two prints on a cardboard mount, slightly creased at the joint, minor dirt. Panorama, flying squadron. And I'm nearly at the end now. The new Wharf and Battery at Battery Point, 1873 photograph. Pretty busy.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's lovely, isn't it? 1872, I love these early photos. I mean, to think that they are photos is amazing, isn't it? You know, somebody did what you're doing, Chris, just snapped it. Took a little longer though. That's reproduced in Tasmanian scenes. And here we have an artist called Gregory. Don't have it. Yeah, 1876, the SS Dandenong, floundering off Jarvis Bay. I don't know why I included that, but it's definitely floundering. Foundering? Is it foundering or floundering? It's got an L, hasn't it?
Flopping
Then you
around.
found it.
Our catalogue hasn't got the L. Our catalogue says foundering. It's floundering, isn't it? Ah.
That's what we used to do.
Oh, there, that's my signal. So I don't know whether that's any of help. That's different, isn't it? The sending signals, that's very different to the ship's thing, but still, it's a beautiful, it's large, it's painting watercolour. It's 45 by 58 centimetres, and it's called Signals Hobart Town by Edward Murphy, private of the 99th Regiment. And he was here between 23 and 1871.
Murphy.
Murphy. Edward Murphy.
We've got a Murphy here.
Have we? Oh.
Spud.
Oh, well, there you go. A similar sheet by the same artist is described in the Tasmanian Daily News, and others are in the Mitchell Library in Sydney and Tasmanian Museum and Art Gallery and the Tasmanian Maritime Museum. Condition is good. That's good. Yeah.
There's your flag, Paul.
Where is it? Is it there? Have you found it?
On the left, on the outside arch, just below the H.
About the fifth one up from the bottom.
University House.
Both Japanese.
Yeah, Japanese way. I reckon there's a house there.
Can you see it?
It is, and in that fine print will be some indication presentation.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So what would that be? Would that like be like a summarisation of all flags of registered ships, or?
Well, they called it Signals Hobart Town.
A lot of ports have different flag signals for that particular port. Most of them were standard, but there's some variations.
We've had a presentation of that very same thing given to the wooden boat killed by a person in Hobart, and I'll look it up and try and let you all know where it was.
Yeah.
But it was about that. It was about the house flags of the ships in Hobart,
Yeah.
and then the flags that we use generally around the port.
Well, that one's available online if you need to have a good look, and you'll be able to zoom in and read everything. So that'll be a good piece of
I
reference.
think I've got a copy of
Oh,
it.
you got
The
it.
Union
Okay.
Jack in the top left-hand corner. So it's like
Yeah, so
Yeah.
the top of the tree, I
the
suppose.
French flag on the side.
Ah,
Yeah, true.
yeah. So,
very
Explosive 100
flag.
so circa 1855 it was made.
Mm.
So quite early, really.
Yeah.
Yeah. Signal stations at Mount Nelson would have been in operation.
And Battery Point.
And Battery Point, right. Wharfside, Hobart Town, 1868. Oh, that's nice. Oh, and quickly, I thought I was near the end, but I've got a few more, just 3 or 4 more, I think, hopefully. Just had to include Mary Morton Allport. So I said that the Allport family had artists. So Mary Morton was the original lady who came out in 1831. She did lots of paintings, but more like this little scene of little river boats. But then Henry Curzon Allport, who was a brother of Joseph, he actually went to Sydney, and he did quite a lot. He was quite interested, so he did things like this, boat studies at Moreton Bay. So he was interested. But this one is actually attributed to Curzona Allport, who's Lily Allport, and that one is a Lily Allport. But they used to like they used to like sketching boats, yeah, they were little wooden boats. Sailing boats in Venice, and this is Victoria Dock, 1920. That's a timetable for the twin ferry Kangaroo from Hobart to Belrive, 1910. That is, what's that, is it? Steamships in Tasmania, collection of postcards. Which one is it? Let's see. Incomplete contents. Got a whole list of them. That is nice. A whole collection of postcards of boats. So that's nice to know. We've got that in the archives. Whole collection. And then just to finish off, 1953.
Apple boats, yeah.
Apples. And that connects it with South Africa. I'm sorry. Because that was the end of the apple industry. The South Africans sending the apples to England.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
So South Africa took it away from Tasmania.
Pretty much, I think. I've heard that. I don't know. I just know that there was some, the apple industry dwindled here. But in 1953, it was. Look at that. I mean, look at those boats.
Yeah, they brought in faster ships.
Apple ships. They were known as apple ships. And that wharf. Oh, look at the Henry Jones Arts Centre. Oh, look, there's no stadium. But we won't go there. And I think that's it for me. So thank you very much. And there's the library's address, so that if you go to www.libraries.tas.gov.au and search any of the words that I've given you, you'll come up with the thing. But if you need help, just go to our the reference section are very good. They help people all the time. Oh, look at you.
Thank you very much.